Andre Whitfield was 38 years old, and until that Saturday morning, he believed he had built something real. A firm he'd grown from nothing. A home he'd designed with his own hands. A 9-year marriage he'd poured everything into. He was the kind of man who showed up quietly and delivered completely. The architect who measured twice, cut once, and never left anything to chance. While picking up his wife Camille's dry cleaning, a small errand he volunteered for, he found a hotel confirmation receipt folded inside her coat pocket. The Grand Meridian, Savannah. 2 guests, reserved under his business partner's name. The same business partner who'd just taken a long weekend for a personal trip. The same wife on a girl's getaway, with a friend who hadn't spoken to her in 2 weeks. Andre stood in his kitchen, receipt in hand, completely still. What he did next, and what he discovered in the days that followed, would dismantle 2 betrayals at once. But they had no idea he was coming. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The pencil moved in Andre Whitfield's hand, the way it always did at 6 in the morning. Slow, deliberate, each line drawn with the kind of care most people reserved for things that could break. He sat at his drafting table in the 2nd bedroom he'd converted into a home studio 8 years ago, back when the house was still just framing and promise. The lamp above him cast a warm circle of light across the blueprint paper. Outside, Atlanta was still dark, still quiet. This was his hour. It had been since architecture school, when he'd learned that the best work happened before the world started making noise. The project in front of him was a residential remodel for a family in Kirkwood. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a kitchen expansion that would open the entire 1st floor to natural light. Nothing glamorous. But Andre had built his reputation on houses like this, homes where families actually lived, where the design served the people inside it rather than the other way around. He measured a setback line, marked it, and checked it against the site survey pinned to the corkboard above the desk. Then he measured it again. That was Andre, measured twice. Always. His mother, Dorothy Whitfield, had drilled that into him before he ever touched a T-square. She was a postal worker in Memphis, a woman who raised him alone in a 2-bedroom apartment off Lamar Avenue, and never once let him believe that where he started had anything to do with where he could go. She taught him to be precise, to be patient, to keep his word and keep his mouth shut until speaking mattered more than silence. He had carried those lessons from Memphis to a full academic scholarship, from a scholarship to a degree, from a degree to Atlanta, from Atlanta to a firm he built with his own name on the door. 8 years of 16-hour days. 8 years of earning every client through consistency, quality, and the kind of quiet reliability that made people come back. Andre set his pencil down and stretched his shoulders. The house around him was still. He'd designed this house himself, a modest 4-bedroom craftsman in a mid-tier suburb west of the city, set back from the street on a 1/4-acre lot with mature oaks along the property line. He'd drawn every room to proportion, chose the hardwood floors, specified the window placement so that morning light would reach the kitchen by 7 and the living room by 8. It was not a showpiece. It was a home built by a man who understood what homes were supposed to feel like. It didn't feel like much of anything lately. Andre walked to the kitchen. Camille's coffee cup sat in the sink, a ring of brown residue drying along the rim. She'd been up early, or she'd never really settled in last night. Either way, she was already gone. Her handbag was missing from the hook by the door. Her keys were gone from the ceramic dish on the entryway table. Her jacket, the cream one, the one she wore when she wanted to look put together, was not on the coat rack, but her things were everywhere else. Magazines she hadn't finished fanned across the living room side table, a pair of heels left at the base of the stairs, a half-burned candle on the bathroom counter beside a bottle of perfume that wasn't the one she used to wear. The house was full of Camille's presents and empty of Camille herself. Andre noticed these things. He always had. He noticed the way she'd stopped asking about his projects 3 months ago. He noticed the way her phone now went face down every time she set it on a surface. He noticed the short answers, the canceled dinners, the girls' nights that appeared on the calendar with increasing frequency and decreasing detail. He noticed that when he reached for her in bed last Tuesday, she shifted away like his hand was something she had to tolerate. He noticed all of it. He just hadn't named it. Naming it would mean something had failed. And Andre Whitfield did not build things that failed. He poured water into the kettle, set it on the burner, turned to the hallway closet where he'd hung her dry cleaning the night before. A small errand he'd volunteered for on his way home from a site visit, because that was the kind of man he was, the kind who picked up the small things without being asked. The plastic bag from the cleaner held 2 blouses and a wool skirt. He'd meant to move them to her closet upstairs. As he lifted the hangers, a folded slip of paper fell from the inside pocket of the skirt and landed on the hardwood floor. Andre picked it up. It was a hotel confirmation, printed on plain white paper, folded twice, creased from being carried. The header read, "The Grand Meridian, Savannah, Georgia." Below that, the reservation details. Check-in, Friday, October 11th. Check-out, Monday, October 14th. Guests, 2. Reservation name, OK4P. Andre read it once. Then he read it again. Then he read it a third time, slower, the way he read structural reports when something in the numbers didn't sit right. Philip Okafor, his business partner, his friend of 12 years, 2 guests, 3 nights. He stood in his kitchen holding the confirmation in one hand. The house he built was silent around him. The kettle had not yet begun to heat. Andre took out his phone. He opened the camera. He laid the receipt flat on the granite countertop and took 2 photographs, one close, one wide enough to show the date and the counter beneath it. Then he set the phone down beside the paper. He turned back to the stove, adjusted the flame under the kettle, and waited for the water to boil. The kitchen was completely silent. The coffee was black and strong. Andre drank it the way he drank everything, slowly, without hurry, as though the morning had nothing in it that required rushing toward. But the phone beside his cup told a different story. The photograph of the hotel confirmation glowed on the screen. He had looked at it 4 times since sitting down. Each time, the words arranged themselves in the same order. The Grand Meridian, 2 guests, Okafor, P. Andre picked up the phone and called Philip. It rang once, twice. Then the automated voice. "The person you are trying to reach is not available. Please leave a message after the tone." He didn't leave a message. He set the phone down, took another sip of coffee. Then he picked it up again and dialed the office line. The main number for Whitfield and Okafor Architecture, the firm he'd built from a folding table in a rented co-working space into a real practice with real clients and a lease on a real suite in Midtown. Brianna picked up on the second ring. 24 years old, organized, sharp. Andre had hired her himself. "Good morning, Whitfield and Okafor." "Morning, Brianna. It's Andre." "Hey! You need something?" "I'm trying to reach Philip. He's not picking up his cell." "Oh, he's out today. Took Friday and Monday off. Said it was a personal trip." She said it the way she said everything. Pleasant, professional, not thinking twice about the words coming out of her mouth. Why would she? It was a normal thing. People took days off. He mentioned where he was headed? No, just that he'd be unreachable most of the weekend. "You want me to email him?" "No, that's fine. I'll catch him next week." "Okay. Have a good one, Andre." He ended the call. Personal trip. Unreachable. Friday through Monday. Andre stared at the kitchen wall. The clock above the stove read 7:14 a.m. The house he'd built was still. The light was just starting to come through the east-facing windows, exactly the way he'd designed it to. He picked up his phone one more time. Kezia Moore was Camille's closest friend. Had been for years. She was the name Camille used most often when she needed a reason to be somewhere that wasn't home. Kezia and I are grabbing dinner. Kezia wants to check out that new place in Inman Park. Kezia and I are doing a girls' trip to Savannah this weekend. Andre found Kezia's number in his contacts and called her. She answered on the third ring, her voice still morning soft. Andre? Hey. Everything okay? Everything's fine. Quick question. Camille left this morning for y'all's trip, and I think she forgot her phone charger on the nightstand. You want me to mail it to the hotel? Or is she good borrowing yours? Silence. Then, trip. The Savannah trip. This weekend. Andre, I haven't talked to Camille in like 2 weeks. We don't have anything planned. The quiet that followed was very brief, but it was enough. My mistake, Andre said. His voice didn't change, not even a little. Must have mixed up the dates. Sorry to bother you, Kezia. No bother. Tell her to call me, though. We really do need to catch up. I will. He hung up. There it was. 3 calls, 3 confirmations. Not a single crack in his voice across any of them. Andre rinsed his coffee cup, placed it upside down on the drying rack, walked to the front door, stepped outside into the cool October air, and got into his car. He didn't start the engine. He just sat there. The driveway was quiet. His neighbor's sprinkler system kicked on across the street, the only sound for half a block. Andre's hands rested on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, and he stared through the windshield at the garage door he had installed himself the summer they moved in. It wasn't the affair that sat heaviest on his chest. Not yet. That would come later, he knew. The full weight of it, the images, the specific cruelty of a bed in Savannah with his wife and his best friend in it. That would find him eventually, probably in the dark, probably alone, and it would hurt in ways he couldn't blueprint his way out of. But right now, sitting in this car, what pressed down on him with both hands was the construction of it. The lie was not a moment. It was a structure. Camille had chosen Kezia's name. She had built a cover story with rooms and hallways and exits. She had rehearsed it, maybe in the mirror, maybe in her head while lying next to him, and she had delivered it with a face he had trusted for 9 years. Philip had requested days off, told Brianna just enough, turned his phone to voicemail. They had coordinated, like a project, like a plan. Andre closed his eyes. His mother's voice arrived the way it always did, not shouting, never shouting, just steady and clear. The way she talked, when she meant every single syllable. Baby. The man who shows all his cards at the wrong table loses everything he came with. He opened his eyes. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to an email buried 3 months deep in his inbox. The subject line read, Draft Petition. Whitfield v. Whitfield. For review only. It was from Nadia Price, the family law attorney his mother had urged him to consult back in July, when Dot had noticed something in Camille's behavior that Andre kept explaining away. He had gone to that one meeting. He had listened. He had asked Nadia to draft the preliminary petition just in case, and then he had gone home and told himself he wouldn't need. He opened the email. The PDF was still attached. Andre read it top to bottom, sitting in his driveway, in the morning light, in the quiet neighborhood of the house he had built for a life that no longer existed. Then he opened the Grand Meridian's website on his phone, tapped reservations, selected tonight's date. 1 guest, 1 room. He entered his credit card number. The confirmation appeared on the screen within seconds. Andre set the phone in the center console, started the engine, backed out of the driveway, and turned south. Savannah was 2.5 hours away. The FedEx on Abercorn Street was half empty when Andre walked in just before 5 o'clock. A woman behind the counter was helping a college kid tape shut a box of textbooks. A printer hummed in the back corner. The overhead lights buzzed that particular fluorescent frequency that made everything feel slightly temporary. Andre approached the self-service computer station. He pulled up his email, opened the PDF from Nadia Price, and sent it to the store printer. 8 pages. He listened to each one slide out of the machine. A clean, mechanical sound, like a deal being dealt. He collected the pages from the tray and read them standing up. Every line, every clause. He had read this document once before in his driveway. Now he read it differently. Not as a possibility, as an action. He signed where the tabs indicated. 3 places. His handwriting was neat and unhurried. The woman behind the counter had finished with the college kid. Andre approached her with the pages squared and even, his license in his hand. "I need this notarized." She glanced at the document. If she had any opinion about what it was, she kept it behind her eyes. "I can do that. You have your ID?" He handed her the license. She checked it, stamped the document, and signed her name with a blue pen. She pressed her seal into the paper. The embossing made a sound like a small, final bite. "You need an envelope?" "Yes, ma'am. A large one?" "Something sturdy." She handed him a white 9x12. Andre slid the pages inside. He did not seal it. "That'll be $11.40. He paid in cash, left the change in the tip jar. The Grand Meridian sat on a landscaped corner 2 blocks from the river, the kind of boutique hotel that announced itself through restraint. Iron railings, cream stucco, gas lanterns flanking a mahogany door. The sort of place that cost enough to feel like a decision. Andre parked in the guest lot and sat for 30 seconds with the engine off. The envelope lay on the passenger seat. He picked it up, got out, walked through the front entrance like a man who had every reason to be there. The lobby was dim and golden. Marble floor. A low arrangement of white hydrangeas on the reception table. Soft jazz through hidden speakers, the volume just below where it would register as music. The concierge was a young man in a navy blazer, maybe 26, standing behind a narrow oak podium. He looked up and smiled. "Good evening, sir. Checking in?" "I am. But first, I need to deliver something to one of your guests." Andre reached into his jacket and produced the original hotel confirmation printout. The one from Camille's coat pocket. He held it so the concierge could read the name. "I'm dropping off documents for the Okafor reservation. Can you tell me the room number?" The concierge hesitated. His eyes moved from the printout to Andre's face. Andre smiled, not broadly, not falsely, just enough to say this is ordinary. "I'll make sure it gets to him directly. He's expecting it." The young man glanced at the printout once more. Room 412. 4th floor, end of the hall on the left. Andre placed a folded $20 bill on the podium. "Thank you." He checked in at the front desk, took his key card, did not go to his room. He went straight to the elevator and pressed 4. The hallway on the 4th floor was long and quiet. Patterned carpet. Brass sconces every 10 feet, casting warm half-circles on the walls. His shoes made almost no sound. Room 412 was at the end, just as the concierge said. Andre stood in front of the door. He could hear the low murmur of a television inside. He held the envelope in his left hand. He knocked 3 times, firm, even. The knock of a man delivering something that could not wait. Footsteps. The deadbolt turned. Philip opened the door. He was wearing a white hotel robe, untied at the collar, his feet bare on the tile entryway. His face registered Andre in stages, first recognition, then confusion, then something cold and liquid that moved behind his eyes like water finding a crack. "Andre?" But Andre was already looking past him. The room opened up behind Philip in a wide, warm rectangle. King bed against the far wall. The sheets were pulled back and bunched. The television was playing something neither of them had been watching, and in the mirror above the dresser, large, gold-framed, angled just enough to capture the full depth of the room, Andre saw her. Camille was sitting up in the bed, one hand on the sheet at her chest. Her hair was down, her eyes found his in the glass. Andre absorbed the room the way he absorbed any space, quickly, structurally, with the trained eye of a man who could walk into a building and know within seconds where the weight was held and where it wasn't. 2 wine glasses on the nightstand, one with lipstick on the rim, a bottle of something dark and expensive, 2/3 gone. Camille's overnight bag, the tan leather one with the brass buckles he'd bought her in Charleston, sat open on the luggage rack, her clothes folded neatly inside. Philip's duffel was on the floor near the closet, unzipped and spilling a sleeve. A pair of heels by the bathroom door. A man's watch on the desk. The bed had been slept in, lived in, settled into. This was not a first night. This was comfort. This was routine. Andre looked back at Philip. He held out the envelope. "I drove 2.5 hours to hand-deliver these." His voice was level, unhurried, the same voice he used to walk clients through a final blueprint. "So, there's no confusion about when you received them." Philip looked down at the envelope. He didn't take it. Andre placed it against Philip's chest and let go. Philip caught it reflexively, the way a person catches something falling. From inside the room, one word. Camille's voice, not loud, not a shout, but cracked right down the center like a glass set down too hard. "Andre." He didn't look at her again. He had already seen everything in that room he would ever need to see. He turned and walked to the elevator, pressed the button. The doors opened immediately, as though the building itself had been waiting. He stepped inside and pressed L. The doors closed. The lobby passed beneath his feet. The hydrangeas, the jazz, the brass, and the marble. He walked through the front entrance and into the October evening, where the air off the river was cool and smelled like salt and mud and something green. His car was where he left it. He got in, set his hands on the wheel, started the engine. He pulled out of the hotel parking lot and turned onto the access road that fed the highway north. Decatur was 3 hours from here. His mother would be awake. She was always awake when it mattered. Andre merged onto I-16, and the Grand Meridian shrank in his rearview mirror until the gas lanterns were just 2 small points of light. And then they were nothing at all. The porch light was on. Andre pulled into the narrow driveway behind his mother's silver Camry and shut off the engine. The dashboard clock read 11:47. The house was a small brick ranch on a quiet street in Decatur. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a screened porch his mother had never once locked because she said anyone desperate enough to steal from a retired postal worker deserved whatever disappointment they found inside. He hadn't called ahead. He didn't need to. The front door opened before his foot hit the top step. Dorothy Whitfield stood in the doorway in her housecoat and slippers, one hand on the doorframe, the other holding her reading glasses. The television was on behind her, the blue glow of a late-night news broadcast, but the volume was off. She had been sitting in her chair, waiting. Not because he'd told her he was coming, but because she was a woman who had raised a son alone and had learned decades ago to feel when something in his world had shifted. She looked at his face. She didn't ask what happened. She stepped aside to let him in. The kitchen was small and clean. Yellow walls, white curtains with tiny flowers along the hem. A wooden table with 4 chairs, though only 2 had ever been used with any regularity. The table had a nick in the corner from when Andre was 11 and tried to build a model bridge with a steak knife. Dot had kept the nick. She said it was evidence of ambition. She filled the kettle without asking if he wanted tea. She set it on the burner and turned the flame to medium. Then she sat down across from him and folded her hands on the table. Andre told her everything. He started with the dry cleaning, the receipt folded inside Camille's coat, the name on the reservation. He told her about calling Philip's phone and getting nothing, about Brianna at the office mentioning the personal trip. about Kezia, confused on the other end of the line, saying she hadn't talked to Camille in 2 weeks. He told her about the FedEx, the notary, the $20 bill on the concierge podium, room 4 and 12, Philip in the white robe, Camille in the mirror. He told her about the envelope pressed against Philip's chest, about walking to the elevator and pressing L and driving north for 3 hours without turning on the radio. Dot listened. Her hands stayed folded. Her face didn't change. She didn't gasp or shake her head or say, "Lord," or "I knew it," or any of the things a person says when they are performing shock. She just received it. All of it. The way a person receives something heavy that they have been expecting to arrive. The kettle whistled. She rose and poured 2 cups, set one in front of Andre, sat back down. "So, what are you going to do?" 5 words. No sympathy wrapped in softness. No outrage dressed up as comfort. Just the question that mattered. Andre looked at the steam rising from his cup. "I'm going to take apart every piece of this, carefully. And I'm going to make sure neither of them walks away with anything I built." Dot nodded. She picked up her tea, blew across the surface, set it down without drinking. "I need to tell you something," she said. Andre went still. 8 months ago, maybe 9. Her voice was even, but he could hear the weight underneath it, the weight of something carried too long in silence. "I was coming out of that Ethiopian place on Peachtree, the one near Lenox, and I saw them." She didn't say who. She didn't need to. They were coming out of a restaurant across the street, walking to his car. His hand was on the small of her back. Not the way a friend touches someone, the way a man touches a woman he's familiar with. The kitchen was very quiet. The refrigerator hummed. "I sat in my car for 20 minutes trying to decide what to do. And I decided I couldn't tell you something I couldn't prove." Her eyes were steady on his, but her jaw was tight. "I didn't want to put a wound in you based on what I saw through a car window across 4 lanes of traffic. I thought, maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was nothing." She paused. "I wasn't wrong." Andre looked at his mother. He saw the guilt there, small, controlled, carried the way she carried everything, close to the chest and without drama. She had held this for 8 months. She had watched him come to Sunday dinners with Camille, watched him talk about the firm and the house and the future, and she had held what she knew like a stone in her pocket, waiting for the moment it would either dissolve or become undeniable. It was undeniable now. 8 months. At least, probably longer. The reservation, the comfort in that hotel room, the wine glasses and the overnight bags and the settled way they occupied that space. This was not something new. This was infrastructure. Camille and Philip had built something behind his back, and they had been living in it while he poured the foundation of a life they had already decided to leave. "Is Nadia Price still the best?" he asked. Dot picked up her tea, drank, set it down. "She's the reason my friend Carol kept her house and her pension. I'll call her in the morning." Dot nodded once. That was all that needed to be said. His old bedroom was at the end of the hall. Twin bed. Blue plaid comforter that was older than his architecture degree. A bookshelf still holding his college textbooks, and a framed photo of him at his graduation. 24 years old, grinning like a man who believed the hardest part was behind him. Andre lay on his back in the dark. The ceiling was the same off-white it had always been. There was a hairline crack near the light fixture he'd first noticed at 15 and had never repaired because his mother said it gave the room character. He stared at it now. 14 months. That was the number forming in his mind. If Dot saw them 8 months ago, and they had already looked comfortable then, familiar, practiced, unhurried, then the beginning was further back, much further. He started doing what his mind always did when a structure revealed itself to be unsound. He went back through the timeline and looked for the load-bearing failures. 14 months ago, Camille started going to a new gym. She never said which one. He never asked. 13 months ago, Philip suggested restructuring the firm's billing software. Andre let him handle it, trusted him to handle it. 12 months ago, Camille stopped asking about his projects. She used to sit on the couch while he talked through designs. She stopped. 11 months ago, a weekend trip she took to visit her college roommate in Charlotte. He drove her to the airport, kissed her at the curb. 10 months. 9. 8. Every month now had a seam he hadn't seen before, and behind every seam was a question he had never thought to ask because he had been building, always building, while two people he trusted completely had been taking him apart from the inside. Andre lay in the dark in his childhood bed and reordered 14 months of his life, event by event, lie by lie, until the structure of his betrayal was as clear and precise as any blueprint he had ever drawn. Andre woke at 5:47 a.m. to the smell of coffee already made. Dot's house. Blue plaid comforter. Hairline crack in the ceiling. For 3 seconds, everything was old and safe and simple. Then the weight came back. All of it. Every ounce. He sat up, put his feet on the floor. The hardwood was cool beneath his soles. He picked up his phone from the nightstand and dialed Nadia Price's office number. A recorded message. He left his name, his number, and 4 words. I need to meet today. She called back at 7:22 while he was sitting at Dot's kitchen table eating toast he didn't taste. Her voice was crisp and unhurried. She remembered him. She remembered the consultation 3 months ago and the draft petition he had never filed. Can you be here at 2? She asked. I'll be there. Bring everything financial. Bank statements, tax returns, anything with both your names on it. The more complete the picture, the faster I can work. He thanked her and hung up. Dot was standing at the counter with her coffee cup, watching him with the same expression she'd worn the night before. Not worried, not pitying, just present. I need to go home and pull records before the meeting, he said. I know. She set her cup down. Drive careful. The house was exactly as he'd left it, Camille's coffee cup still in the sink, her jacket draped over the back of the dining room chair, the faint trace of her perfume in the hallway, a ghost of the woman who had already been gone in every way that mattered long before Savannah. Andre went straight to the office, 2nd floor. The room he had designed with a south-facing window for morning light and built-in shelving along the west wall. His drafting table was on one side. Their shared filing cabinet was on the other. He pulled the bottom drawer. Joint bank statements. He sat down at his desk and opened his laptop to access their accounts online. Joint checking, joint savings, his business account, the credit cards. He started with the savings. He went month by month, 14 months back. He printed each statement and laid them side by side across the desk like elevation drawings. Then he started marking withdrawals with a red pen. January. A transfer of $800 labeled home renovation deposit. There had been no renovation. Andre had not approved one. He had not discussed one. He circled it. February. $2,200 to something called Freelance Services Group. Camille didn't freelance. She worked in marketing at a firm in Midtown. He circled it. March. $2,500 labeled household supplies. In a single transfer. To an account number he did not recognize. He kept going. April, May, June. Every month had one, sometimes 2. Always between $1,200 and $3,400. Always described as something ordinary, something domestic, something a husband too busy building a firm wouldn't question because the amounts were small enough to feel like the normal cost of living. They were not the normal cost of living. Andre pulled up the account routing number that appeared on 7 of the transfers. He cross-referenced it against their known accounts. Checking, savings, the household credit line. It matched nothing. She had opened a separate account. Somewhere. Under her name, or under a name he didn't know about. And she had been feeding it for over a year. He added the figures, red pen, margins of the printed statements. The total came to $34,200. $34,000. She had taken $34,000 from their joint savings, money he had earned, deposited, and trusted to be there, and moved it into a hidden account while sleeping next to him every night, while kissing him goodbye in the mornings, while telling him she was going to the gym, visiting friends, working late. She wasn't just sleeping with Philip. She was building an exit, plank by plank, dollar by dollar. A door she could walk through whenever she decided the performance of their marriage was no longer worth maintaining. Andre sat with the papers for a long time. Then he opened the filing cabinet's second drawer and pulled out a box of manila folders and a set of colored tabs. He organized every document, chronological, color-coded, bank statements tabbed in blue, transfer records in red, account summaries in green, every page dated in the upper right corner in his own hand, every anomaly highlighted and cross-referenced to the corresponding monthly statement. His phone buzzed on the desk. He glanced at the screen. Camille. He let it ring. It stopped. Then it buzzed again, and again, and again. Over the next 2 hours, while he built the folder the way he built a set of construction documents, precise, complete, inarguable, his phone registered 12 missed calls, all from Camille. No voicemails. She was the kind of person who didn't leave messages. She expected you to see her name and call back. He did not call back. He was not ready for her to hear his voice and measure what he knew by its temperature. He was not ready for her to perform an explanation he would have to pretend to consider. Not yet. Not until every piece was in place. At 1:15 p.m., Andre put on a clean shirt. He picked up the folder. It was heavy, 2 inches thick, tabbed, dated, and cross-referenced to the decimal. He locked the house behind him and drove downtown. Nadia Price's office was on the 9th floor of a building on Peachtree Street. Clean lines, glass and steel. The waiting room was quiet and smelled like nothing. No candles, no air freshener, no warmth designed to put you at ease. It was a room built for people who were past the point of being put at ease. Andre was shown in at exactly 2 o'clock. Nadia stood behind her desk. She was tall, dark-skinned, natural hair pulled back in a low bun. She wore a navy suit and no jewelry except a thin watch. Her handshake was firm and brief. "Sit down," she said. He sat. He placed the folder on the table between them, 2 inches thick, every tab visible, every page in order. Nadia looked at the folder. Then she looked at him. Andre opened it to the first tabbed section and laid his hands flat on either side. 14 months of transfers, he said. $34,000 moved into an account I didn't know existed, disguised as household expenses and services that were never performed. He met her eyes. She wasn't just leaving. She was funding the departure while I paid for everything else. Nadia pulled the folder toward her. She opened it. She began to read. Nadia read for 47 minutes. She did not rush. She did not skim. She turned each page with the same deliberate patience, pausing at the highlighted transfers, running her finger along the routing numbers Andre had cross-referenced. Twice, she pulled a yellow legal pad from her desk drawer and wrote something down. Once she went back 3 pages to compare a date. Andre sat still. He did not feel the need to explain. The folder spoke for itself. When she finished, Nadia closed the folder and placed both hands flat on top of it. She looked at him with an expression that was not sympathy. It was recognition. The look of someone who had seen this pattern before and understood its architecture. "This is thorough," she said. "You've done half my work for me. I wanted you to have everything. I do, for the marriage." She paused. "But you have a business partner, too. And based on the timeline you've laid out, the affair beginning at least 14 months ago, the financial transfers starting in the same window, I'd be negligent if I didn't ask you this." She leaned forward slightly. Have you looked at your firm's books with the same eye you used on these bank statements? Andre felt something shift in his chest. Not surprise, something heavier. The feeling of a door he had been standing in front of, but had not yet opened. No, he said. You should. Nadia's voice was even. Before our next meeting, if the personal betrayal and the business relationship overlap this precisely in timing, there may be a pattern that extends beyond the marriage. I've seen it before. Once someone crosses one line, the others get easier. Andre nodded. He understood. He had always understood structures, how weight distributed, where stress concentrated, which joints failed first when the foundation was compromised. I have an accountant, he said. Warren Greer. He's handled the firm's books since we incorporated. Can you trust him? He works for the firm, not for Philip. Then get a full audit. Every billable hour, every client payment, every disbursement for the last 24 months. And Andre, she waited until his eyes met hers. Ask him to look specifically at any entities or accounts you don't recognize. Anything that isn't Whitfield and Okafor. He called Warren from the parking garage. The older man answered on the second ring, his voice carrying the same steady, unhurried tone it always did. Warren Greer was 61. He had been an accountant for 33 years. He did not get excited. He did not get nervous. He got accurate. Warren, I need a full audit of the firm's financials. 24 months. Every client account. Every disbursement. Every line. A pause. That's a big pull, Andre. Something specific I'm looking for? Anything that doesn't match what I'd expect to see. Accounts I don't recognize. Entities I didn't authorize. Billing inconsistencies. He gripped the steering wheel with his free hand. And Warren, this stays between us. Just you and me. Another pause. Longer this time. Understood, Warren said. Give me 4 days. It took 3. Warren called on a Tuesday evening. Andre was at the house. Camille had not come home since Savannah. She was staying with a friend. Or with someone. Or somewhere. It didn't matter. The house was quiet. And Andre had stopped noticing her absence as anything other than operational convenience. You need to come see this in person, Warren said. His voice was the same as always, steady, unhurried, but there was something underneath it now, a weight that hadn't been there before. Andre drove to Warren's office the next morning. It was a small suite in a brick building off Ponce de Leon, the kind of place that smelled like paper and old carpet and careful, honest work. Warren was waiting at his desk with 2 monitors open and a stack of printed spreadsheets held together with a black binder clip. He didn't greet Andre with small talk. He turned one of the monitors so Andre could see it and pointed to a column highlighted in yellow. This is your client billing ledger for the last 18 months, Warren said. Left column is the contracted fee. Middle column is what was invoiced to the client. Right column is what came into the firm's operating account. Andre looked. The left and middle columns matched. The middle and right columns did not. The invoiced amounts are higher than the contracted fees, Warren said, on 14 separate projects. The difference ranges from $1,800 to $7,400 per project. The clients paid the invoiced amount. They wouldn't have known the contracted fee unless they dug into the original engagement letter. The overage never hit your operating account. Andre's jaw tightened. Where did it go? Warren pulled up the second monitor. A bank account summary for an entity called Okafor Creative Consulting, LLC, registered 18 months ago. Sole member, Philip Okafor. He created a shell company, Warren said. Routed the excess billings through a separate merchant account tied to this LLC. The payments look like subcontractor fees if you're not looking carefully. But there are no subcontractors. There's no creative consulting. There's just Philip. Andre stared at the screen. The transactions were listed in clean rows. Dates, amounts, descriptions that said things like design consultation supplement and project coordination fee, language designed to be invisible, language that assumed no one would ever look. Total? Andre asked. Warren flipped to the last page of the printed spreadsheet. His finger landed on a number circled in black ink. $61,340. $61,000. Stolen from the firm Andre built. From clients Andre brought in. From relationships Andre had cultivated over 8 years of showing up, delivering, and never cutting a corner. Philip hadn't just slept with his wife. Philip had been picking his pockets at the same time, methodically, patiently. Over the same 18 months, the affair and the fraud ran on parallel tracks, both hidden behind the same smile, the same handshake, the same word. Brother. Andre closed his eyes. He pressed his palms flat against the desk. He breathed in through his nose and held it for 3 seconds. Then he exhaled. Print everything, he said. Every page, every transaction, every filing for that LLC. Warren nodded. Already done. He slid a second binder across the desk. It was thick, tabbed, organized the same way Andre organized his own documents, because Warren had learned that from working with him for 8 years. Thank you, Warren. Andre. The older man took off his glasses. His eyes were tired and sorry. I should have caught this sooner. He built it so you wouldn't. That's not on you. Andre picked up the binder and left. Nadia's office. Thursday afternoon. Same glass, same steel, same air that smelled like nothing. Andre set the binder on the table beside the original folder. 2 inches of marriage, 3 inches of business, 5 inches of evidence that the 2 people he trusted most in the world had been dismantling his life from the inside. Nadia opened the binder. She read faster this time. She knew what she was looking for now. Her pen moved across her legal pad in short, sharp strokes. She flipped between the LLC filings and the billing discrepancies 3 times, mapping the connections. When she looked up, her expression had changed. It was sharper, focused in a way that reminded Andre of a surgeon studying a scan and finding exactly what she expected to find. This is fraud, she said. Civil, at minimum. Potentially criminal. He created an entity to siphon firm revenue without your knowledge or consent. The documentation is clean enough to pursue recovery, and the pattern is consistent enough to demonstrate intent. Can we handle it separately from the divorce? Yes. 2 separate proceedings. The divorce addresses the marriage and the joint marital assets, including Camille's concealed transfers. The civil fraud claim addresses Philip's theft from the partnership. She set her pen down. But I want you to understand something. In the divorce, I can use the business fraud as supporting evidence of coordinated bad faith between Camille and Philip. The overlapping timelines, the parallel concealment. It paints a picture that no judge will ignore. Andre absorbed this. 2 threads, same loom, same pattern. What about criminal charges? He asked. You could refer the matter to the district attorney. With this documentation, there's a reasonable basis for prosecution. Embezzlement, fraud, wire fraud, depending on how the payments were routed. Andre looked at the binder, then at the folder beside it, then at Nadia. No, he said. Nadia waited. I don't want him in prison. I want him to have to walk around in the world he ruined. I want him to lose the firm, lose the clients, lose the money, and have to sit with the fact that he did it to himself. Andre's voice was quiet and level, every word measured. A cell gives him an excuse, a story. Something happened to him. I want him to live in the result of what he did. Nadia studied him for a moment. Then she nodded once. Civil recovery it is. I'll file the fraud claim and the partnership dissolution simultaneously. He'll face the financial exposure without the narrative cover of a criminal case. She pulled a clean legal pad toward her and began writing. Here's how we structure it. The divorce petition is already filed. Camille has been served. We move forward on discovery, and use the concealed transfers to offset her equitable claim. Simultaneously, I engage a business litigation partner in my firm to file the civil fraud action against Philip and his LLC. We seek full recovery of the $61,000+ damages, and we petition for immediate dissolution of the partnership with you retaining all client contracts and intellectual property. She looked up. Both proceedings run at the same time. The evidence from each strengthens the other. By the time we reach settlement or trial, Camille's position is gutted by the financial misconduct, and Philip's position is gutted by the documentation your accountant just handed us. She placed her pen flat on the pad. They thought they were taking from a man who wasn't paying attention. They were wrong. Andre looked at the two files on the table. 5 inches of paper. 8 years of trust. Everything measured, verified, and ready. "Do it," he said. "Both." She came on a Tuesday. Andre was at his desk in the firm's main studio, reviewing elevation drawings for a client renovation in Inman Park. The office was quiet. Brianna was at the front desk. The afternoon light fell across Andre's blueprints in long, clean rectangles through the floor-to-ceiling windows he'd chosen when he signed the lease 4 years ago. He remembered the day he and Philip had walked this space for the first time. Philip had pointed at the windows and said, "This is where we become somebody." Andre heard her heels on the hardwood before he saw her. Camille walked through the studio door like she belonged there. She was dressed carefully. Cream blouse, tailored slacks, gold studs in her ears. Her hair was freshly done. Her makeup was precise. Every detail selected and arranged. This was not a woman who had been crying for 6 days. This was a woman who had spent 6 days preparing for a performance. "Andre," she said. Not a question. A placement of herself in the room. He looked up from his drawings. He did not stand. "Can we talk?" she said. She pulled a chair from the small conference table near the window and sat down without waiting for an answer. She crossed her legs. She folded her hands in her lap. Her fingers were steady. "I know how this looked," she began. Her voice was calm, practiced, soft enough to suggest vulnerability, firm enough to maintain control. "And I'm not going to sit here and pretend it didn't happen. But you need to understand that this situation is complicated." Andre watched her. He said nothing. "We haven't been connected in a long time, Andre. You know that. I've tried to talk to you about it. I've tried to get you to see what was happening between us. You were always working. Always at this desk, or at the house, or on the phone with a client." She paused. Let the silence do work. She thought it was doing. What happened with Philip? It wasn't planned. It was a symptom of something that had been breaking for a long time. She waited. She was watching his face the way someone watches a locked door, looking for the click. Andre's expression did not change. His hands remained still on the desk. His breathing was even. He gave her nothing. No anger she could push against, no pain she could soothe, no crack she could wedge herself into. He was a wall with good manners. Camille blinked. Once. She uncrossed her legs and leaned forward slightly. The softness in her voice thinned. "I've spoken with an attorney," she said. "And you should know that under Georgia law, I'm entitled to equitable distribution of everything we built during this marriage. That includes this firm, Andre. Half the value, half the assets. I helped build this life. I supported you while you built all of this." She gestured around the studio. At the windows, the drafting tables, the framed project photos lining the wall. "My attorney says my position is strong." She said, "My position is strong," the way someone sets down a card they believe is the highest one at the table. She watched him, waited for the flinch, the jaw clench, the flash behind the eyes that would tell her she'd landed the blow. Andre looked at her for a long moment. His face was still. His voice, when it came, was quiet and unhurried. "You should talk to your lawyer." 4 words. No heat, no edge. Nothing for her to grab. Camille stared at him. Her lips parted slightly, then closed. She searched his eyes for something. Anger, grief, fear, and found only architecture, structure, load-bearing silence. She stood, smoothed her slacks, picked up her purse from the back of the chair. She walked to the door, and just before she reached it, she glanced back over her shoulder. Andre had already returned his attention to his elevation drawings. She left. The glass door swung shut behind her. Andre listened to her heels fade down the corridor. He heard the front door open and close. He set down his pencil. He sat very still for 30 seconds. Then he picked up his phone. He called Raymond Tate first. Raymond was the largest single client on the firm's books, a developer building custom homes in a gated community in Alpharetta. Andre had designed 9 of the 12 houses in the development. Raymond's voice was surprised but warm when he answered. "Ray, it's Andre. I wanted to let you know personally that I'm dissolving the partnership with Philip. The firm will continue under my name, Whitfield Architecture Group. Your projects won't be interrupted. Your contracts are with me, and I'll be handling everything directly going forward." A pause. "Everything all right?" "It will be. I just wanted you to hear it from me first." "Andre, man, I hired you because of you. Philip's a good talker, but you're the one who builds my houses. I'm not going anywhere." The second call was to Denise Worthington, who was developing a boutique apartment complex in Old Fourth Ward. She listened carefully. She asked 2 questions, both about her project timeline. Andre answered both with specific dates and deliverables. She said, "I trust you. Keep me posted." The third call was to Marcus Hadley, a commercial client who had been with the firm for 3 years. Marcus didn't answer. Andre left a message, professional, direct, unhurried. He explained the dissolution, confirmed continuity, and asked Marcus to call at his convenience. He set his phone down on the desk. 2 out of 3. Immediately, without hesitation. Because they had never been Philip's clients. They had been Andre's clients who tolerated Philip because Andre was in the room. Andre got home just after 8. The house was dark. It smelled faintly of Camille's perfume. A ghost of presence, without the person. He didn't turn on the overhead lights. He walked through the hallway to his drafting room and switched on the desk lamp. The warm circle of light fell across the table's surface. He set down his keys. He set down his phone. He opened his briefcase and removed the folder Nadia had sent by courier that afternoon. The cover page read, "Civil Fraud Complaint. Whitfield v. Okafor, Creative Consulting, LLC, and Philip A. Okafor, individually." Andre pulled the chair out, sat down, and opened the filing documents to the first page. The conference room was on the 14th floor of a glass tower on Peachtree Street. Nadia had chosen the venue, not her office, not the opposing counsel's office. Neutral ground, but the kind of neutral ground that smelled like polished walnut and old money. The kind of room where consequences were delivered in calm voices and bound folders. Andre and Nadia arrived 20 minutes early. Nadia set her briefcase on the table and opened it with the precise, unhurried movements of a surgeon laying out instruments. She wore a charcoal suit. No jewelry except a thin watch. Her hair was pulled back. Everything about her said, "I have done this before, and I will do it again, and the outcome will not surprise me." She placed 4 folders on her side of the table. Each one was labeled with a printed tab. Each one was thick. She arranged them in a specific order, left to right, and then set a single legal pad and a black pen beside them. Andre sat to her left. He wore a navy suit, white shirt, no tie. His hands rested flat on the table in front of him. He had not brought a briefcase. He had not brought documents. He had given Nadia everything weeks ago. His work was already finished. What happened in this room was execution. "You comfortable?" Nadia asked without looking up. "Yes." "Good. You don't need to say a single word in there. If they ask you something directly, look at me first. I'll handle it. I know." She glanced at him then, studied his face for a moment. Whatever she found there satisfied her. She returned to her folders. At exactly 2 o'clock, the door opened. Camille's attorney entered first. His name was Gerald Moss, mid-50s, silver at the temples, a family law practitioner with a decent reputation and an expensive suit. He carried a leather portfolio under one arm and extended his hand to Nadia with the automatic confidence of a man who expected the room to tilt in his direction. Nadia shook it. Once. Brief. Camille came in behind him. She was dressed the way she'd been dressed at the office, carefully, deliberately. Black dress, pearl earrings. Her posture was straight. Her chin was lifted slightly. She looked at Andre as she sat down. He did not look at her. He was watching Nadia arrange the last folder. Gerald Moss opened his portfolio and spread several printed pages in front of him. He cleared his throat. "Thank you all for being here. My client is prepared to negotiate in good faith toward an equitable resolution." He adjusted his reading glasses. Mrs. Whitfield contributed significantly to the household throughout the duration of the marriage. She managed domestic responsibilities that enabled Mr. Whitfield to focus exclusively on building his professional practice. Under Georgia's equitable distribution framework, she is entitled to a fair share of the marital estate, including the assessed value of the architectural firm, the primary residence, retirement accounts, and joint investment holdings. He paused, looked across the table, waited. Nadia did not respond immediately. She let the silence hold for 3 full seconds. Then she opened the first folder. "Before we discuss distribution," she said, "I'd like to introduce some documents into the record." She slid a set of stapled pages across the table. Bank statements, 14 months of them. Every page had yellow highlighted lines running through specific transactions. Over the past 14 months, Mrs. Whitfield transferred approximately $34,000 from the joint marital savings account into a personal checking account opened solely in her name at a separate financial institution. Nadia's voice was level, almost conversational. The transfers were categorized variously as household expenses, freelance payments, and contributions to a home renovation fund. No freelance work was performed. No renovation was initiated. The funds were moved incrementally, amounts between $800 and $3,000, at regular intervals designed to avoid detection. Gerald Moss picked up the bank statements. His eyes moved down the highlighted lines. His mouth tightened. Camille did not move. "This pattern of financial concealment," Nadia continued, "constitutes marital waste under Georgia law and demonstrates sustained bad faith over an extended period. My client was unaware of this account until he conducted a review of the household finances following the discovery of Mrs. Whitfield's extramarital relationship." Gerald Moss set the papers down. He turned to Camille. She was staring at the bank statements on the table as though they were something alive. "I'd like a moment with my client," he said. "Of course," Nadia said. "But before you step out, I want to make sure you have the complete picture." She opened the second folder. This one was thicker. She placed it in front of Gerald Moss and folded her hands on the table. "This is a forensic audit summary of Whitfield and Okafor Architecture, LLC. It documents a pattern of fraudulent double billing by Mr. Philip Okafor over a period of 18 months, during which approximately $61,000 was routed from the firm into a private LLC created by Mr. Okafor without my client's knowledge or consent." She paused. Let the numbers sit in the room. "The period of Mr. Okafor's financial fraud overlaps almost precisely with the period of Mrs. Whitfield's concealed transfers. Both began within weeks of each other. Both involved systematic deception directed at my client. Both were conducted by individuals engaged in an intimate relationship with each other." Nadia looked directly at Gerald Moss. When two parties engaged in a personal relationship simultaneously and independently defraud the same individual, one through the marriage, one through the business, over the same time frame. That is not coincidence, Mr. Moss. That is a pattern. And in this proceeding, we will present it as evidence that your client and Mr. Okafor were acting in concert. The phrase landed like a stone dropped into still water. Acting in concert. It changed the shape of everything. It connected the affair to the money. It connected Camille to Philip's fraud. It turned a messy divorce into something that looked, from every angle, like a coordinated scheme to strip Andre Whitfield of everything he had built. Gerald Moss stared at the audit summary. He did not flip through it. He did not need to. The weight of it was visible in the thickness of the pages and the precision of the tabs. He stood up. "I need 15 minutes with my client." "Take your time," Nadia said. Gerald Moss picked up both sets of documents and walked toward the small anteroom adjacent to the conference room. Camille stood to follow him. Her movements were slower now, less composed. She reached for her purse, and her hand missed the strap on the first try. She did not look at Andre as she left the room, but just before the door closed behind her, Andre saw her face in profile. Her jaw was set. Her eyes were wide. Her lips were pressed together so tightly they had gone pale. She was frightened. The door clicked shut. Andre and Nadia sat in silence. The conference room hummed with the faint sound of the building's ventilation system. Sunlight came through the windows at an angle that lit the far wall in a wide stripe of gold. Andre had not spoken a single word since entering the room. He had not needed to. Every document on that table had been gathered by his hands, organized by his mind, and delivered by the attorney he had chosen. Every line of evidence had been placed before he ever sat down in that chair. Nadia made a small note on her legal pad. She did not look triumphant. She looked like a woman who had done her job correctly and expected nothing less. 12 minutes later, the anteroom door opened. Gerald Moss came back alone first. He sat down. He placed his hands on the table. His tie was slightly loosened, though Andre suspected he hadn't noticed. The color in his face was different now. Less confident, more careful. Camille followed. She sat. She did not lean back in her chair. She did not cross her legs. She stared at a point on the table's surface approximately 6 inches in front of her folded hands. Gerald Moss spoke. "We'd like to request additional time to review the materials before continuing discussions. My client is prepared to engage in productive settlement negotiations, and we believe that can be accomplished without protracted litigation." It was the language of retreat, dressed in the suit of cooperation. Nadia recognized it. Andre recognized it. Gerald Moss knew they recognized it. "We're happy to accommodate a reasonable timeline," Nadia said. "I'll have my office send over a proposed framework by end of week." The meeting was over. Outside, the afternoon sun hit the sidewalk hard. Atlanta in late spring. The air was warm and thick. Andre and Nadia walked side by side toward the parking deck. Their shoes clicked on the concrete in alternating rhythm. Nadia adjusted her briefcase strap on her shoulder. She looked straight ahead when she spoke. "They'll settle." Andre glanced at her. Moss knows what that audit looks like in front of a judge. He knows what acting in concert means for her credibility. He's going to tell her to take what she can get and walk away before this gets worse. She paused at the crosswalk. The light was red. She'll fight on the number. They always do. But she won't fight on the structure. The structure is yours. The light changed. They crossed. "I'll have the proposed terms to you by Thursday," Nadia said. "Review them. Call me with any changes. We move fast from here." Andre nodded. "Thank you, Nadia." She stopped at her car, a dark gray sedan, clean, practical. She looked at him over the roof. "You did the hard part, Andre. You brought me everything I needed, and you brought it organized. Most people can't do that when they're going through what you're going through." A pause. "I just put it in the right order." She got in her car, and pulled out of the deck. Andre stood in the concrete shade for a moment. The parking structure was quiet. Somewhere above him, a car door closed and an engine started. He breathed. The air tasted like exhaust and warm asphalt, and something else, something lighter. He walked to his truck, got in, and drove to the firm. The civil fraud claim was filed on a Wednesday. By Thursday morning, Andre had 3 meetings scheduled. He held them at his office, the same drafting room where he and Philip had built the firm over 8 years of early mornings and late nights. The conference table still had a coffee ring from a mug Philip had set down 2 weeks ago. Andre hadn't wiped it away. He hadn't avoided it either. It was just there, a stain on a surface he owned. The first meeting was with Raymond Hicks, who ran a real estate development group responsible for 4 of the firm's active residential contracts. Raymond arrived in a navy sport coat and no tie, the way he always did. He shook Andre's hand at the door and sat down without small talk. Andre laid it out plain. The partnership is dissolving. I'm restructuring under my name, Whitfield Architecture Group. Every active contract will be honored. Every deadline stays. Every specification stays. The only thing that changes is the name on the letterhead. Raymond leaned back. He tapped his index finger on the table twice. Phil's not involved going forward? No. Can I ask why? Financial misconduct within the firm. It's being handled through civil proceedings. Raymond nodded slowly. He didn't ask for details. He had worked with Andre for 5 years. He had watched Andre redraw an entire foundation plan at 10 o'clock on a Friday night because a soil report came back wrong and Andre refused to build on a number he didn't trust. I came to this firm because of you, Raymond said. That hasn't changed. He signed the contract transfer letter before he left the room. The second meeting was with Patricia and David Yoon, a couple developing a cluster of luxury townhomes in Kirkwood. They were newer clients, 14 months in, and more cautious. Patricia asked pointed questions about project continuity and staffing. David asked whether Philip's departure would affect the design timeline for their Phase 2 permits. Andre answered every question directly. He opened his laptop and walked them through the current project file. Every revision, every material selection, every note from the last site visit. All of it was his work. All of it had always been his work. Patricia looked at David. David looked at the screen, then at Andre. We're staying, Patricia said. That was 2. The third client was Marcus Ellerby, who owned a chain of boutique apartment buildings across Midtown. Marcus was careful with loyalty. He told Andre he needed a few days to think it over. Andre thanked him, shook his hand, and didn't press. 4 days later, Marcus called back. I talked to Raymond, he said. He told me what I already knew. You're the reason any of us walked through that door. 3 for 3. Philip called on a Saturday. Andre was at his drafting table. Morning light came through the east-facing window and fell across a set of elevation drawings for the Yoon townhome. His phone buzzed on the desk. The screen read, Philip Okafor. He let it ring 3 times. Then he picked it up. Andre! Philip's voice was thick, rougher than usual. He sounded like he hadn't been sleeping. I need you to hear me say this. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Andre said nothing. We were like brothers, man. You know that. 12 years. I never meant for any of this to... I know, Andre said. Silence on the line. That's what made it worth so much. He hung up. He set the phone face down on the drafting table. He picked up his pencil. He went back to work. Philip's attorney reached out to Nadia the following week. There was no fight left to mount. Without the firm, without the clients, without the partner whose name had given his own name weight, Philip had no leverage and no income stream sufficient to sustain a legal battle. His attorney proposed a structured settlement, $47,000 repaid over 36 months. Nadia reviewed the terms, consulted Andre, and accepted with one modification, a non-compete clause covering the state of Georgia for 5 years. Philip signed. Within a month, he was gone. He moved to Houston. No one in their professional circles spoke of him with warmth. Some didn't speak of him at all. Andre signed the civil settlement paperwork at Nadia's office on a Sunday morning. The document was 4 pages. He read every line. He signed where indicated. Nadia witnessed and filed. He stood and shook her hand. "That's the last of it?" he asked. "On the business side," she said. "The divorce settlement will finalize within 60 days, but the hard architecture is done." He noticed her word choice. He almost smiled. He drove to Decatur. The roads were quiet, the way Atlanta roads are quiet on Sunday mornings, church traffic moving slow, windows down, gospel stations drifting from passing cars. He parked in Dot's driveway behind her tan Camry and walked up the front steps. The screen door was unlocked. The house smelled like roast chicken and rosemary and something sweet cooling on the counter. Dot was at the stove, her back to him, stirring something in a wide pot. "Wash your hands," she said without turning around. "Dinner's in 20 minutes. Andre set his keys on the hook by the door, the same hook that had held his house key when he was 12 years old. He washed his hands at the kitchen sink. He dried them on the towel that hung from the oven handle. Then he sat down at his mother's table. 14 months later, Andre Whitfield pulled into the parking lot of Whitfield Architecture Group at 5:51 a.m. The office was in a converted brick warehouse on the west side of the Beltline. 2 stories, tall windows, exposed beams that someone else had left raw, but Andre had sanded and sealed himself during the first week of the lease. The sign above the entrance was simple, black lettering on white steel. No flourishes, just the name and what it meant. He unlocked the front door and turned off the alarm. The space was still dark. He liked it this way. The building before anyone else touched it. The quiet before the day filled in around him. He flipped on the drafting room lights and set his bag on the hook behind his desk. The firm had just closed its strongest revenue year on record. Not its strongest year since the restructuring. Its strongest year ever. Stronger than any year when there had been 2 names on the door. He had 3 active residential contracts, 2 commercial consultations, and a project in early design that had kept him up past midnight twice in the last week. Not from stress, but from the kind of focus that made him forget to eat. A mixed-income residential development in southwest Atlanta, 42 units. Market rate and affordable housing designed to exist side by side without the affordable units looking like an afterthought or an apology. The city planning office had called it one of the most ambitious residential proposals they'd reviewed in 5 years. It was the most significant project of Andre's career, and it belonged entirely to him. He had hired 2 junior architects in the spring. The first was Terrence, a quiet kid from Morehouse with a good eye and a habit of overworking his renderings until someone told him to stop. The second was Alicia Trent, 24 years old, graduated top of her class from Andre's alma mater, and the only applicant who had submitted a portfolio with hand-drawn elevations alongside her digital files. She reminded him of himself at that age, not because she was talented, though she was, because she was precise, and because she didn't confuse being quiet with having nothing to say. He had offered her the position before she left the interview. The office would fill up by 8. For now, it was just Andre and the blueprints. He lived in a condo in West End now. He had designed it himself. Or rather, he had redesigned the interior of an existing unit, stripping it down to the studs and rebuilding it around the things that mattered to him. Clean lines, open sight lines from the kitchen to the living room. A drafting nook by the east wall where the morning light arrived first and stayed longest. The place was smaller than the house. Much smaller. He didn't miss the square footage. He missed nothing about that house except the version of himself that had believed in what it was supposed to hold. He cooked again. Simple things at first. Eggs, rice, roasted vegetables, the meals his mother had taught him when he was 15, and she decided he would not be a man who couldn't feed himself. Now he made full dinners 3 or 4 nights a week. He had learned to make a lemon butter sauce for fish that Dot said was almost as good as hers. She said, almost every time. He understood that almost was the highest grade she gave. He ran 3 mornings a week. Not far, not fast. Just enough to feel his body working the way it was supposed to. The way a well-built structure does when every load-bearing wall is where it belongs. Dot came to Sunday dinner every week, without fail. She brought dessert and opinions in equal measure. She sat at his small dining table and told him about her garden, her neighbors, the book she was reading, the deacon at her church who talked too long. She did not bring up Camille. She did not need to. The divorce had settled 5 months after the conference. Camille received significantly less than she had anticipated. The $34,000 in concealed transfers was treated as marital waste, money removed from the marriage in bad faith, and the court offset her equitable claim accordingly. Her attorney had pushed back. Nadia had not moved. Camille relocated to Charlotte. She and Philip did not stay together. Andre did not know the details of how it ended between them, and he did not ask. Whatever they had built on the back of what they broke was never going to hold weight. Some foundations fail because they were never meant to carry anything real. Philip made his structured payments every month. Funded $305.56, deposited on the 15th. Andre didn't need the money. He didn't spend it. He let it accumulate in a separate account like a ledger. Each deposit a quiet receipt for what Philip chose to do and what it cost him. Andre stood at his drafting table. The Southwest Atlanta blueprints were spread in front of him. Elevation drawings, site plans, unit configurations still marked in pencil where decisions hadn't been finalized. Morning light came through the tall windows and fell across the paper in long, clean bars. He was not yet in another relationship. He was not in a hurry. He was, for the first time in years, standing in a life that fit him exactly. Every wall where he had placed it, every room the right size, every door opening in the direction he chose. He picked up his pencil. He began. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.